Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. Read by Brian Cox. In that pleasant district of merry England, which is watered by the river Don, there extended in ancient times a large forest, covering the greater part of the beautiful hills and valleys which lie between Sheffield and the pleasant town of Doncaster. Here, haunted of yore, the fabulous dragon of Wantley. Here were fought many of the most desperate battles during the civil wars of the Roses, and here also flourished in ancient times those bands of gallant outlaws whose deeds have been rendered so popular in English song. Such being our chief scene, the date of our story refers to a period towards the end of the reign of Richard I. King Richard was absent, a prisoner, and in the power of the perfidious and cruel Duke of Austria. Even the very place of his captivity was uncertain, and his fate but very imperfectly known to the generality of his subjects, who were, in the meantime, a prey to every species of oppression. Prince John, in league with Philip of France, was using every species of influence with the Duke of Austria to prolong the captivity of his brother Richard, to whom he stood indebted for so many favours. In the meantime, he was strengthening his own faction in the kingdom. The nobles, whose power had become exorbitant during the reign of Stephen, and whom the prudence of Henry II had scarce reduced to some degree of subjection to the crown, had now resumed their ancient licence in its utmost extent, fortifying their castles, increasing the number of their dependents, reducing all around them to a state of vassalage, and striving by every means in their power to place themselves each at the head of such forces as might enable him to make a figure in the national convulsions which appeared to be impending. A circumstance which greatly tended to enhance the tyranny of the nobility and the sufferings of the inferior classes arose from the consequences of the conquest by Duke William of Normandy. 4 generations had not sufficed to blend the hostile blood of the Normans and Anglo-Saxons, or to unite by common language and mutual interests 2 hostile races, one of which still felt the elation of triumph, while the other groaned under all the consequences of defeat. The power had been placed in the hands of the Norman nobility, and it had been used with no moderate hand. The whole race of Saxon princes and nobles had been extirpated or disinherited, with few or no exceptions. The sun was setting upon one of the rich grassy glades of that forest which we have mentioned. Hundreds of broad-headed, short-stemmed, wide-branched oaks flung their gnarled arms over a thick carpet of the most delicious green sward. The human figures which completed this landscape were in number 2, partaking in their dress and appearance of that wild and rustic character which belonged to the woodlands of the West Riding of Yorkshire at that early period. The eldest of these men had a stern, savage, and wild aspect. A brass ring, soldered fast round his neck, was engraved in Saxon characters. Gert, the son of Beowulf, is the born thrall of Cedric of Rotherwood. Beside the swineherd, for such was Gert's occupation, was seated a person about 10 years younger in appearance, and whose dress was of better materials and of a more fantastic appearance. He had thin silver bracelets upon his arms, and on his neck a collar of the same metal bearing the inscription, Wamba, the son of Witless, is the thrall of Cedric of Rotherwood. He was provided with a cap, having around it more than 1 bell about the size of those attached to hawks, which jingled as he turned his head to one side or the other, which circumstance, as well as his own half-crazed, half-cunning expression of countenance, sufficiently pointed him out as belonging to the race of domestic clowns or jesters, maintained in the houses of the wealthy to help away the tedium of those long, lingering hours which they were obliged to spend within doors. "The curse of St. Withold upon these infernal porkers," said the swineherd, after blowing his horn obstreperiously.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?